I remember the exact moment I realized silence his weight. Nothing fell. No one shouted. It was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind that blends into every other evening, if you don't stop to notice it. Dinner dishes soaking in the sink, the ceiling fan humming its tired rhythm. My husband sitting across from me, scrolling through his phone, nodding occasionally as I talked. I stopped mid-sentence. Not because he interrupted me, but because I suddenly understood something that unsettled me deeply. I had been quiet for so long that I no longer knew where my voice went when I needed it. That realization didn't come with tears right away. It came with a hollow feeling, like walking into a room where furniture had been slowly removed over time. Nothing missing enough to notice at first, until one day, you realize there's nowhere left to sit. I didn't always believe in staying quiet. When we first got married, I was expressive. I spoke freely. I cried easily. I laughed loudly. I believed honesty was the backbone of love. I believed that if something hurt, you talked about it, and the talking made it better. And at first, that belief seemed right. We shared opinions. We argued and resolved things. We listened. We apologized. I felt seen. I felt chosen. But life has a way of changing the rules without explaining them. The first time I chose silence, it felt harmless. It happened during a family gathering. My husband made a comment about me, how I was too sensitive and needed to toughen up. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. My face stayed calm, but something inside me tightened. Later that night, I replayed it in my mind. I thought about bringing it up. I even practiced what I might say. But I imagined the response before it happened. You're overthinking. It was just a joke. Why do you always take things so personally? I didn't want to be seen as dramatic. I didn't want to ruin a good evening. So I told myself it wasn't worth it. I stayed quiet. That decision felt mature at the time. Wise. Like emotional discipline. I told myself I was protecting the peace, protecting our marriage, being understanding. Silence became my offering. And once I offered it, it became easier to offer again. I stayed quiet when my opinions were brushed aside. I stayed quiet when decisions were made without me. I stayed quiet when my needs were postponed, minimized, or reframed as inconvenience. Each time, I told myself the same thing. This is what love looks like sometimes. People praised our marriage. They said we were calm, stable, drama-free. I smiled when they said it. I wore that description like a badge, even as something inside me slowly began to fade. What no one saw was the cost. Silence followed me everywhere. It followed me into the shower, where I replayed conversations that never happened. It followed me into bed, where my body lay beside my husband, but my thoughts stayed awake. It followed me into conversations with friends, where I edited my truth until it sounded safe. I learned how to smile without meaning it, how to nod without agreeing, how to say it's fine so convincingly that people stopped asking. Over time, I stopped asking myself, too. The most painful part wasn't that my husband didn't notice the change in me. The most painful part was realizing I had started believing my feelings didn't matter enough to be spoken. There was a season when things shifted from uncomfortable to heavy. My husband began struggling at work. Stress settled into him. His patience thinned. His words sharpened. He became distant, irritable, tired in ways that sleep didn't fix. I told myself this was temporary. Good marriages endure seasons, I reminded myself. So I endured. I stayed quiet when frustration spilled over onto me. I stayed quiet when affection became rare. I stayed quiet when conversations turned one-sided. I became very skilled at explaining his behavior to myself. He's under pressure. He doesn't mean it. He's just going through a lot. What I didn't explain, what I avoided naming, was how small I felt. How lonely. How invisible. I began feeling guilty for wanting more. Because from the outside, my life looked fine. I had a husband, a home, stability. That kind of guilt is dangerous. It teaches you to distrust your own pain. The turning point didn't come during a fight. It came during a silence so loud it scared me. One night, I sat on the edge of the bed holding my phone. I had typed a message to my sister. It was short, honest, vulnerable. I'm not okay. My finger hovered over the send button, then I deleted it. And something inside me broke, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. I realized I had become someone who hid even from the people who loved her most, all in the name of protecting a marriage that wasn't protecting her back. That night, I cried quietly, my face pressed into a pillow so no one would hear. My body shook, not just from sadness, but from the exhaustion of carrying everything alone. I wasn't just silent anymore. I was disappearing. The effects showed up in my body before I could admit them emotionally. I was tired all the time. My chest felt tight. I lost interest in things that once brought me joy. I felt numb, then guilty for feeling numb. I started wondering, when I became someone who needed permission to exist fully in her own life. The moment I finally spoke wasn't planned. It happened on an ordinary morning. I asked my husband a simple question, something important to me. He brushed it off without looking up. And something in me shifted, not anger, not rage, clarity. I said softly but firmly, when you do that, it hurts me. The room went quiet. He looked genuinely surprised, as if the idea that I could be hurt hadn't crossed his mind. That reaction hurt more than any argument ever had. The conversation that followed wasn't magical. There were no instant apologies or dramatic breakthroughs, but it was the first time in years that I didn't swallow my truth. And it was terrifying. Speaking didn't immediately save my marriage. In fact, it revealed how much distance silence had created. Silence had kept things calm, but it had also kept them shallow. We had difficult conversations after that. Some led to understanding. Some led to discomfort. Some forced us to confront things we had both avoided. But something changed in me. I stopped betraying myself to maintain peace. I learned that silence isn't always strength. Sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's survival. And sometimes it becomes a habit so ingrained that you forget you ever had a voice. I still believe in patience. I still believe in grace. I still believe in choosing your moments wisely. But I no longer believe silence should be the price of belonging. Some things can be endured quietly, but some truth must be spoken, even if your voice shakes, even if the outcome is uncertain. Staying quiet almost destroyed me, not because silence is always wrong, but because I used it to avoid honoring my own worth. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in my story, I want you to know this. Your feelings are not an inconvenience. Your voice is not a threat. And speaking your truth does not make you difficult. It makes you honest. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for a relationship is stop disappearing inside it. So I'll leave you with this question, one I wish I had asked myself sooner. If you keep staying quiet, who are you slowly becoming? And is that someone you want to live with for the rest of your life? Hi lovelies, hope you enjoyed Ty's story. Please do well to like, share, comment, and subscribe.